We have been going through a series of messages called Christmas Stars, and we have talked about Mary, and we've talked about Joseph, and now we're going to talk about Immanuel, the God that's with us. And I want to just paint a picture of what was happening in Jesus' day, in between Malachi and Matthew, the four Gospels, Matthew or Luke, before the Christmas story. There's this thing called an intertestament period or intertestament time. It's really this 400 years of what feels like silence. Malachi speaks, and then there's just like almost quietness, silence. 150 years before Christ comes, there's a leader by the name of Antiochus who's ruling, and he wants the whole empire to be Greek, and so he sets up some things for the Israelites, for the Jewish people, and thousands are slain through this time. The temple is defiled. He imposes rules like the Jews cannot assemble for worship or sacrifice or prayer. They can no longer observe the Sabbath. They can't possess scriptures. It would be illegal. Circumcision was illegal. The dietary laws that was important to a good follower of Yahweh, and the law was illegal. And it was just a moment and a time and a season of what felt like absolute silence, where it felt like where is God in this? Where is he? Like, why is he so quiet? What's happening? And not much after that, Maccabees also there's this revolt. It looks like hope for a moment, only to find very soon after that Rome takes over, and the person in charge of Judah is a guy by the name of King Herod, and he is fearful and he is insecure, and life is a mess. And God seems very, very, very quiet. And I imagine there must be this feeling of despair, a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of just wonder, a feeling of fear, a feeling of confusion, just like, where is God? And I can't help but wonder if some of us haven't gone through that. I wonder if most of us haven't got through something like that during the whole COVID season, and just wondering, like, where is God? There's this hope, this sense of, like, there's this feeling of something is more. There's something more that should be there, but it just seems sometimes so silent. And sometimes we have these mountaintop moments when we feel like God is really close, but then all of a sudden, like, it seems silent again. Anybody at all? It was in this kind of moment that God spoke, a message loud and clear. And it started through a little teenage girl by the name of Mary, 12 to 14 years old. God interrupts the silence and says to Mary, hey, you are going to have a child. He is the Immanuel, the God with us. He is the incarnate God, man, becoming a baby, walking among us. Like, it's going to happen. So God speaks. And in Matthew chapter 1, verse 22, it says this, all of this, a lot of prophecies, a lot of things that happened that we went over the last few weeks, took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Immanuel. God is with us. Immanuel is what they call a multi-fulfilled prophecy. It's a prophecy that was first fulfilled or brought up in Isaiah chapter 7 when two nations are threatening and King Ahaz is on the throne and he doesn't know what he's going to do, and two nations are threatening from the north, and God is like, hey, I've got this. It's going to be like I'm in control. And here's this little glimmer of hope in Isaiah chapter 7 verse 4 through 9. It says, be careful, keep calm, don't be afraid, don't lose heart, because of those two smoldering stubs of firewood And then verse 9, if you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. And here's this message to Ahaz saying, hey, listen, you are threatened. You feel like God is silent. You're not sure. But I'm here to tell you that God is moving. He's going to make something happen. God says something which rarely happens in the Bible. He says to Ahaz, test me. Like, check this out. Ask for a sign. Ahaz says, I won't ask for a sign. I wouldn't do that. So God tells the prophet Isaiah, hey, tell him this. Therefore the Lord will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. First part of the prophecy about God coming through, fulfilled finally in Jesus. It's interesting, I can't help but wonder if in Ahaz's time, if they weren't saying God is nowhere, and I can't help but wonder if in Jesus' day before he comes in 400 years of silence, if people weren't saying that God is nowhere. When Jesus comes in as Immanuel, when God works through a virgin teenage girl, when God breaks the silence, he, in a loud exclamation, says this, the God that you thought was nowhere is now a God that's now here. He's here. He's present. Immanuel, the God that's with us. And here's honestly the point. If God can make the heavens and the earth, and he can make humanity, and he can be all-powerful and all-knowing, and he can transcend time and space and history, but if we can't know him, if we can't have a relationship, if God is over here and we are over here, we are lost. We are hopelessly lost. And so God sends his son, Immanuel, God who's with us. And in that birth, he reaches out to humanity. God makes the first move. He does the impossible. And God becomes a man and becomes present in our time and space and in history. A couple of years ago, we studied the Gospel of John. John chapter 1 says it so well, and it says this, that in the beginning was the Word, who was Christ. The Word was with God in the beginning. The Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all people. It goes on to verse 14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of his one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Immanuel, God with us. God with us because we need him. We need guidance. We need salvation. We need hope. We need meaning. We need purpose. We need peace. We need God with us. We need him because without him we are absolutely, hopelessly lost. Lost and in despair. Immanuel. I love in my life when I have mountaintop experiences. Do you know what those are? Mountaintop experiences like when you're on Wednesday night with a bunch of girls and one of them says, tell me more about Jesus. Here's this mountaintop moment. Mountaintop moments are those when somebody you know gets saved or somebody you know gets healed. There's like this moment when like God is so close. At least it feels that way, right? I remember when I got saved, I used to think that to be a Christian meant to live in mountaintop moments, that life should be just a glorious moment like Elijah fighting the prophets of Baal and God comes through. Like, I just thought that should be life. And so I remember as I was a new believer, all of a sudden, like there was this moment when I didn't feel God and I didn't sense him. And I started thinking, am I not reading the Bible enough? Am I not praying enough? Am I not going to church enough, right? Have you been there before and God seems really, really quiet and you don't know what's going on? And I just learned that's part of the Christian life. I also learned that often those, what I call those desert moments, are the very things that strengthen my faith and cause me to be firmer in who God is in my life. Amen. They're desert moments, wilderness moments. I love mountaintops, don't get me wrong. I love it when your favorite team is down by 36 points at halftime. And there's no way. And you've given up. And all of a sudden, it works out and they win. Those are mountaintop moments for at least this person. But I love the moments when things seem to go well. But I just find that that's not how life often is. It's not well all the time. As a matter of fact, someone that I really, really respect that does a podcast shared this interesting statement. She said that life is 50-50. And I'm like, 50-50? I thought I was playing that raffle ticket, 50-50. And I'm like, what do you mean life is 50-50? And she went on to say that you will find life is often 50% joy and 50% trials. And I thought, that's really, yeah. And it dawned on me that life is a lot like that. And I think we've all experienced that in going through valleys and going through storms and going through deserts. And guys, we've all walked through it. We did a series on seasons of life and knowing that you just don't live in the mountain, but those valley moments when everything seems to like fall apart. I think desert for me is like when God's quiet, but a valley is when like my car breaks down and people are mad at me, right? And then the dishwasher breaks down and then my other car's got a flat. Like those are valleys for me, right? When everything falls apart. Deserts for me are often when God is quiet. Storms are just the trials of life, and so that's how I look at it. But it's part of life. I think of King David. One moment, King David is killing Goliath, and he's being called a hero. And then the very same people that called him a hero a few years later are going after him, trying to kill him. And I wonder if David wasn't edifying himself with a psalm that he wrote, Psalm 23, and it says that even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. Why? Because you are with me. You're with me. And so the same God that was present in the best moments of life is present in the most difficult times of life. When we went to Tamar in Israel, it's in the desert. And at first I was like, I don't think I like being in the desert. And I began to realize, and I shared this a moment ago, but I began to realize that often your greatest strength will come in moments of what feels like solitude, in moments where it seems dry. I don't think it's a coincidence that after the great miracles in Egypt, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Israelites spent 40 years in a desert. God had a work that he was doing. I don't think it's a coincidence that Moses, after recognizing that God had called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, and he kills an Israelite, I don't think it's a coincidence that Moses spent 40 years in the desert taking care of sheep and learning to hear God's voice. I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that Jesus, after the Father, and Jesus gets water baptized, the Father speaks and says, "This is my Son, in whom I'm very well pleased." I don't think it's a coincidence that after that great mountaintop moment, Jesus is now led into a wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights to be tempted. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. Pastor Greg Rochelle has great insight when he says this, that our deepest needs become a gift when they drive us to depend upon God. Often those desert moments, those deepest needs are catapults that cause us to move deeper into who God is. I quote him again, "Your deepest needs become a gift when they drive you to depend upon God." There's a great lesson that I want to just move to in the next few moments I have from Elijah. And maybe it's a story that you know. I would imagine if you're a person of faith for a little while, you've heard about it. But Elijah just has this great mountaintop experience. He is battling the prophets of Baal. They're on Mount Carmel, and there's this huge showdown. If you remember the story, the prophets of Baal get all of their stuff together, and they dig these ditches, and the way that's supposed to be is all of the gods that they worship are supposed to soak up this sacrifice and do something. And so the prophets all day are cutting themselves and slashing themselves, trying to get their God to wake up and to do something. And then later on that day, Elijah calls upon the God of Elohim, the Creator God, to come forth, and he lights up the sacrifice, and he removes it, and even the water around it. And here's this moment where God is just showing up powerfully. As a result, in 1 Kings chapter 18:39, all of the Israelites fall to their knees in repentance, declaring Jehovah is the one true God. This is a great moment. The second thing that happens is all the prophets of Baal, all the false teachers are all killed, 850 of them slaughtered. It should be just a moment when you're like, God is awesome. This is so crazy. Revival has swept the land. People are repenting. This should be the best moment ever. And if you know how the story goes, Elijah then runs only 15 miles back to the capital in Jezreel. And the crazy part is that he beats a chariot that took off. He ran so fast, supernatural power, I don't know. But he gets there. And when he gets there, one of the messengers says, "Hey, Elijah, Jezebel is going to kill you." And I find it interesting that this whole time, Jezebel's husband is King Ahab. King Ahab has been wanting to kill Elijah for a long time. But now that it's Jezebel, a woman scorned, watch out, right? And he loses it. Elijah has a moment when he's like, what is going on? What's happening? Faith leaves, hope vanishes, vision is gone, and he moves to what we commonly would call a desert moment or a wilderness moment. Check this out. So Elijah, he's here at Mount Carmel. He goes up to Jezreel. He hears about what's happening with Jezebel, and he takes all the way down to Beersheba. By the way, if you went to Israel with us, this is one of the places we visited, Beersheba. He's there, and he's losing it. He's like, he's done. He's over. I don't know what to do. And he hides under a broom bush, and he just wants to die. I want to quit. I want to give up. It's too hard. I'm done. No one cares. Just think about it for a moment. I mean, he had fought battles. He's seen dead children raised. He's seen God come with power, but something happens in this moment when all hope is lost. He's in a desert place, and God answers. 3 times an angel of the Lord provides some food and tells Elijah, "Hey, eat. Get up and eat. Get up and eat." Elijah keeps falling back into this depression, into this wilderness moment. Have you ever been there before? Have you ever had a great Sunday? Like when God just moved in your life in a big way, and you get in the car, and you get like 2 blocks, and you start fighting with somebody in the car? Anybody ever happened before? Right? Like if you're married, it's your spouse or your parents or your siblings or whoever it is, like all of a sudden, or your dog, I don't know, like, but everything changes. Everything just moves differently. You had a great moment when, like I said, someone gets saved and now you feel tired or you're worn out and just feel hopeless. I love the fact that the story isn't over and there's something that's really huge that we're going to see in just a moment. So Elijah gets up from Beersheba, and God tells him to go to a cave. So he travels all the way to Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, where the 10 Commandments were given. By the way, if you went to Israel with us before, you'll find this possible path takes him right by a place called Tamar. That's where we stay. A very good chance that Elijah went right through where we stay. It was the only watering hole in the desert. That's where we stayed for 3 or 4 days. A very good chance Elijah went right through there, probably grabbed some water and headed to Mount Sinai. That's pretty cool. In Mount Sinai, he's standing in a cave on Mount Horeb. In 1 Kings chapter 19, God says to Elijah, "What are you doing?" Probably that still small voice, that voice of God when he speaks. What are you doing? Elijah responds, "I have been living for you. I've been honoring you. I've been doing everything you told me to do. I've been faithful. I've done my best. I've done everything, but now I'm alone. No one stands with me. No one cares. No one is living for you. And now they just want to kill me, and I just want to die. God, where are you?" And here's a huge lesson. And I bet you probably have never heard it quite this way before. So God says to Elijah, "Elijah, I want you to stand by the mouth of the cave, and I'm going to show myself to you." There's a lesson here. And so as Elijah is standing there waiting for the presence of God to come, there's this huge wind that passes by. It tears the mountains. It shatters the rocks. And if you know the story, God is not in the rushing wind. And then as Elijah's there, an earthquake happens and everything begins to move. The wall starts shaking, and God was not in the shaking. And then Elijah looks over and he sees this fire burning, and he assumes God must be in the fire. But God wasn't in the fire. Can God use a rushing wind? Absolutely. Can God use an earthquake? Oh, yeah. I think of Jesus, when Jesus is on the cross, and there's this huge earthquake that happens, and it shatters the rock, the stone. Like, God can definitely use earthquakes. And can God use fire? Of course. God speaks to Moses through fire. What is so different about what's going to happen? It's different because Elijah is in a different place. Now, listen to this. First Kings chapter 19, verse 15 through 18. Then there's a gentle whisper. "Elijah, what are you doing? Elijah, I've not forsaken you. Elijah, I'm right with you. Elijah, go back. Go back. Anoint Elisha. He will succeed you. Elijah, I have 7,000 people that have not bowed their knee. Elijah, I'm right here with you." Why Why do you think God spoke in a whisper? Why is God choosing to whisper? It's because in our darkest moments, God is so close that all he can do is whisper. I want to suggest to you, church, that when you often feel like God is a million miles away, he's really whispering your name. And he's saying, I'm Immanuel, and I'm with you. I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. I will not abandon you. I am with you. God is with us. God is with us. Immanuel. Psalm 34:18 says this, the Lord is close, very close, to the brokenhearted, and he rescues those whose spirits are crushed. God is near. Maybe you're in a mountaintop moment today, and God bless you if you are. Maybe you're in a valley where everything seems to be going wrong. Maybe you're in a storm where everything's chaotic. Maybe you're in a desert where God seems very silent. Immanuel, God is with us. To save, to deliver, to heal, to bring peace, to comfort, to forgive. He celebrates with us. He weeps with us. He rejoices with us, our God Immanuel. It's a promise to Isaac when he wants to return to Egypt in a famine. I'm the God that's with you. It's a promise to Jacob as he flees for his life from Esau, and later he returns to face him. I am the God that is with you. It is God's promise to Moses as he questions his ability to lead the people out of Egypt. He simply says, Moses, I am the God that is with you. It is the promise to Joshua as he assumes leadership of the people from Moses into the promised land. Joshua, I am the God that is with you. It is the same affirmation throughout the Old Testament over and over again to God's people as they prepare to enter God's land. I am with you. To Gideon as he faces the Amalekites, I am with you. To Saul as he prepares to become king, I am with you. To David as he promises him a dynasty that will last forever, I am the God that is with you. To the exiles as they face uncertain futures, I am with you. To Jeremiah as he faces opposition and death, I am with you. To the discouraged community who had returned from the exile in Haggai chapter 1, I am with you. God, Immanuel, is with us.